our design thinkers. My name's Matthew Sear, and today we are going to be getting into part 2 of our button design. We're going to be covering the different button types. So we're going to be doing the button favicon and the link button type, and then we're also going to be creating our dark and light mode. So if you've watched the first part, then you're ready to go. So sit back, relax, and let's jump into the video. Alright, here we are inside of Figma. We are going to get started with our buttons. I've done a couple of small minor changes and I renamed this. I made sure that I just added base instead because this is your base actual button. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually adjust this from being button type here, and I'm going to call this my style, because ultimately in the end this will be the style. Like primary, secondary, tertiary, that's your different states, different styles of your button, and this is your base, and we're going to create our button types. So to create our button types, we actually need the ability to access our button types. And if by any chance, this would be considered my base type, the very basic fundamental block of my button. So I'm going to select my button here, and I can actually press Shift Enter, where it jumps up a layer. I'm going to actually then press Enter again, so I can go down a layer. I'm going to press Enter again, I'm going to actually go down the next layer. So I basically have now selected the other base button type asset that's under the hood here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create myself a instance link, which I will be calling button. Oh, let's just call it type. We already know it's a button. And I'm going to go, yes, I already have one type, which is this one. So by creating, by the way, just an ordinary frame, this is just an ordinary frame, as well change the padding. But I call this button type, and I also have it a grayish black at the background. And what I'm going to do is have this component set. I'm going to also add a color in the background of that one as well. I will use the same background color there. So what's going to happen is, because I select this icon here, I'll drag that one out. I can actually go to that type. And there we go. See in the background, we have that black gray. It means that we can see it on that color, which is nice. So you could change this here to whatever color you like, and it will show up in the background. I will also just change very quickly. I know that I have those two types. This is my style. Okay. There we go. Now, how can we create, let's say, our link button? Let's select the base button type, and I go Control. Oh, just one thing. There was one other change, sorry, my bad. We also changed these icons. So I went through and I just updated my icons. I clicked on these, link, I changed them to 16 for the smallest type, the extra small. I went to my small and I linked, and then I did 20, and then the rest of them are the same actual 24 button size. And I also selected all of my buttons, and I made sure that they will all auto align, center align. It means that the button text will center align alongside the icons themselves. So that was all the updates that I did. I'm going to now create my link button. just basically Control Paste or Shift D. There we go. Now I have this next set. Instead of calling it base, I will call these link. And now I have my link. They obviously don't look like links. I have these two colors. I'm going to actually just remove them. This will remove the default base styling under here. And I will also get rid of all of the padding. Now that I've removed all of the padding, I can center them, bring them into the center of the frame, and I will just change the rounding. So we will go to the top. I'm going to drop that down to 14. I'll drop this down to 12. I'll drop this one down to 10. And I'm going to make this one 8. And we'll see very shortly why. But basically, that is my link buttons. By keeping everything the same, using the same set, I have maintained the same naming conventions, the same names and everything in the same formats. And now, when switching them around, this will make it easier for me to make sure that we keep the same icons and the same text. So I'll go inside my style component, which is here, and I will go and I will add in that extra type, my link button type. Now I can access that link button type there. So if I drag this out, and let's say I say Matt, and now I can come to here, I can go to link button, and I can switch to my link button type. And I can also jump down all of our sizes, like so. Now, sometimes when switching, you can lose a little bit of information, but just bear in mind that if I was to go back to large, it says Matt there. So sometimes when switching down through here, the text may not be linked up correctly, where the text here. So this is where we need to make sure that we are creating our correct button text link, and make sure that that is also the same here. So if I duplicate that out, there we go. I can now switch to the lower one, switch to smaller sizes, larger sizes, different types. Now, as you can see, I switched to my tertiary and I just got a background color. And I can see the rounding, which is nice. And I can also jump up the sizes and I can still see the rounding. And this is why we still do the rounding adjustments. And when we switch between our styling, for example, if I switch this one to the secondary, you'll see that it does the outline. And this is what happens when we change these elements. So this styling, changed the styling, added a line, made sure the line was, and removed the background. The reason why primary is just blank and has no colored backgrounds because I removed the color background here, and primary did not have a background add from the base button type. So if you were to change the color here, this would change because I have not default set that as the colored background. if I default set that here as the default background, then this would actually change itself. So let's go down to that component and we could do that. And should ideally set that. There we go. So it's taken on the styling from the parent. So just be aware where you set styling, it will maintain and keep that styling. Where you don't set styling, it will not maintain it. And that would be the difference here. I don't want that styling. And what I'm actually going to do now is I'll leave that as is. I'm going to switch that to 8. But what I will remove from my base button is actually the styling. Besides the rounding of the corners, which I want to keep across all my buttons, I'm going to remove that styling. And now, because I have this on here and I set the styling, that will be my primary style. That will be my secondary style. That will be my tertiary style. And when I select link buttons, it will also change and maintain the styling. But I don't have the one where it has the color removed. So this is where we add in our additional style. So let's add an additional style, and this will be clear. And I will remove from the core base type my background, and I will leave it as so, but I will change that to the lighter color, which should be like that. And because these link buttons are all like so, I can switch to my link and it will maintain the color. So there we go. Now I have my link color. And now I'm going to create my favicon. I will take the base type and create another one from the base type. And instead of course, keeping it as base, I will call it my fab. And this is where I'm going to start removing a few things. I don't want my text element to show anymore, so I will remove my text element. Bear in mind, removing this means that if you switch between, you could remove it or you could hide it. So if you hide it, it will maintain the name and it will recognize that and bring it across. But sometimes it breaks when removing the item, just so you know. But I will be removing it. I'm not too worried. I don't have many off times switching between text names and to a favicon. So I will remove the right icon and make the left icon my primary icon. And if you notice, as I selected all of these, I can see that they don't look like they're in a nice square. And I can demonstrate that by just, let's say, throwing on a background. Let's just choose, I don't know, blue for the time being. I will remove this in a sec. If I go up to my fab, I have 14, 12, 8, and 4. So what I'll just do is make sure that if I go down here, that these match up. 14, 12, 8, and 4. And I am fairly happy with those. I will center this. I don't really like this being as round, so I'll hit that down to an 8. And I'm happy to take that down to a 10. And look, what does that look like? And I'm happy to take these just down a notch, just to give them a little bit more of a squarish block vibe. I will come in here and I'm going to remove that color. So now I have these. I have the icon. There is this piece with my fab icons where they allow to show. I will disconnect the ability to hide because you're picking a fab. You're not really going to hide the icon. So we'll remove that. I'll leave that instance change. That means the link is set and fixed. And now I can go to my button styling. I can go to this down here and I can add in my fab. So if I come up to the top here, and as I said, I've set that background styling, I can now go to my fab. There we go. Now I can change my secondary, tertiary. I can even have a clear one. I wouldn't really use this exact clear one because obviously that's a bit of a click space, but it can be useful at times. There are designs where we would want this size click box, but with the icon there. So it is a handy one to have. So another key point, sometimes this happens, but if I was to switch down to my fab, I should ideally first pick the styling and then switch out what the icon is, because at times when you change and switch back to the styling, this doesn't always happen, but let's say I switch from there and I switch to that, we maintain that white. So sometimes it bugs out like that, just so you know. Hopefully we can get that fixed. All right, we got our fab, we got our base button, and we got our link button. So we got all the things we need. What we're going to do is do our next set of styling, and that's going to be our dark and light mode. And I'm going to start these ones to be specific to my dark mode, because, for example, this would be on dark for me. I'm going to select this, drag it out. I'm going to remove that auto layout there. And I will add in my dark and light mode here. So let's go and add a variant, my mode. Modes. And I'm starting with dark mode. And I'll grab these and I am going to duplicate them across, and these are going to be my light mode. And all I need to do is just change the styling. So I can come into here, and my recommendation usually, because of the component being switched out, is to make sure you change the styling either to the component that's being base changed, or you can do it to the top. It's up to you. It depends where you want it. I'm fixing it to this one so that it just usually seems to be more consistent. So I have selected the base down there, and I'm going to set this to my 8 for my dark mode. So when you go light, you're usually brightening the color. You don't need it to be as dark. And also you can not be as harsh on the contrast. So right now I don't have any lighter than that on my 50 purple, but just for the example of this, I will drop that down. Maybe I'll go down to, I don't know, like a 50. And I'm going to grab this. I actually might even drop my styling with this one down, actually. Instead of using an 8, I might go down and say the outlines are 50 instead. Yeah, because I would say that looks quite nice. And then I'll pick up the color on my dark mode button instead. And that means my light mode button can be a little bit stronger on the white. I will pick that inner, actually, yeah, I'm going to pick the inner to be 7 and the outline to be 50. And I'm actually going to make this one a little lighter. So I'm going to bring that one up to my 60, maybe in my 50. Let's have a look. All right. Yeah, I like that. I think that one looks a lot nicer in my dark mode. Bringing it up, making it a little lighter. And that is also great on my light mode, on my dark mode. So I'm happy with these adjustments. And overall, when I'm looking at this on my light, these look quite nice too. Maybe a little bit bold. Like I could probably drop that down to a 7. And maybe I drop that. Maybe 7 is my goal for white. Yeah. And there we go. Now I have some adjusted colors, adjusted styling for my dark and light mode. And I can grab my button and I can now switch the modes. So at the moment, this one's at light, but I'm working on dark. And I want to have my favicon, and I want it to have a different icon inside. And there we go. We have basically completed our ultimate layered button. We got our link buttons, favicons, we have the ability to switch them in and out. We have the dark and light mode, color combinations. Now this button is your base button, and when building more of these into the future, you'll be able to then simply use these sets together in conjunction with one another and build out all the buttons you'll ever need in any style you'll ever need, but in the fastest way you can with just using a couple of simple ways of layering your assets. So I hope this has been helpful and insightful. Please let me know in the comments section below, and I'll see you all in the next video. Catch you, design thinkers.